get going. So with that in mind, we have lots of people on the call already. So I think I'm gonna launch our information session and people can continue to trickle in. So first and foremost, thank you everybody so much for joining our program's virtual info session and our networking event, since we're going to have some of our current students here too. My name is Dr. Erin Stiles. Right now, I'm the director of the Medical Genomics program, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this session. So before we begin, I would love to just start by hearing from some of you. So I know probably a lot of us are in the GTA, downtown Toronto. I'm in Toronto, but I would love to hear where people are zooming in from. This is one of the exciting benefits of being virtual. So sound off in the chat. Where are you? Saskatoon. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Where are you guys? Winnipeg, Toronto. So we have Vancouver. Indonesia just went by. That's so cool. Downtown Toronto, London, Ontario. This is the best part of Zoom, is that we can have people in who wouldn't otherwise be able to come to our sessions. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming from sort of near and far. We've got some Vaughan, we've got Mississauga, Nigeria, amazing. Oakville, yeah, okay, this is my favorite, Mexico. This is the best part of Zoom, is that we can have people joining us from all over the world, all over the Southern Ontario. So thank you guys so much for coming from near and far to join our session today, and I hope you guys get something good out of this. I'm really excited to talk to you about the program. So before I launch into, telling you all about the Medical Genomics program, I just want to talk about the field that we're sort of situated in first. So a lot of you already will know what genomics is. The study of genomics really represents this idea that we want to understand and interpret and harness the information that's contained within our DNA. And this is a really rapidly growing area. It's a great time to enter the field, and it has these really far-reaching implications. So implications that start in the lab, where we're doing all this sort of cutting-edge research, and stretch all the way to patients' bedsides, where we're trying to implement the findings from our research. Now, medical genomics is this emerging clinical discipline that's sort of paired with the study of genomics, and it relies on using genomic information about an individual to help try to inform decisions about their clinical care. And technical advancements in what is still sort of a relatively new field are really driving us towards this new era of healthcare, where we're using genetic and genomic information all the time. So this field that we're in is just exploding right now. And we know more about the human genome and how our genetic information impacts our health than we have ever before. But because it's so fast-paced, because all these advancements are happening so quickly in the research setting, it's actually creating this widening knowledge gap between cutting-edge genomics research, so what we can know, and current clinical practice, like what we're actually doing. So where does that leave us? This is what this program is really situated to provide. So the Professional Masters in Health Science program, or the MHSc in Medical Genomics, really strives to place our graduates right at the vanguard of genomic medicine. So this is really oriented towards a new way of thinking about research and clinical science, where genetic and genomic data are really routinely being collected and analyzed across a huge range of different kinds of patient populations and for many different medical reasons. And because of that, our mission is really to provide our students with this really unique training and learning opportunity here at the University of Toronto to teach practical and also theoretical aspects of modern genetics and modern genomics, with this really strong focus on how we can apply those things clinically, and to give our students very directly actionable skills that we know that they're going to need when they leave our program and when they get into the field, and to give them career enabling experiences so that they really have the tools that they need to get that great job when they graduate. So the program consists of this core set of lecture, discussion, and project-based courses across 2 years or 5 terms. So you can see there's year 1, fall, winter, summer, year 2, fall, winter, then you're done. And notably, there is no graduate thesis here. That's really the major difference between this program, which is a professional program, and a lot of other graduate programs in our department and in other places too. So there's lots of information about all of our core courses on our program's website. And in brief, though, students are generally taking 2 relatively high intensity core classes at a time. And then throughout the program, they're also required to take 4 elective short courses. So you can see the list of elective short courses on the bottom of the slide, and you can see our 2 big core courses that students are taking in each semester around the slide in these arrows. So the first year, we're really dedicated primarily to core competencies. So we're learning about human genetics, we're learning about biostats, and we're learning about genomic methods. And then the second year focuses more on these big picture sort of application-based courses. So you're learning about how to communicate genetics and genomics to all these different audiences. You're learning the ethical and legal implications of genomic medicine. Excuse me. And then the program really culminates in this capstone practicum project. And there will be a little bit more of an opportunity to hear about the practicum shortly, but as a sort of general overview, our program has these great pre-existing relationships with numerous groups across the GTA, across Southern Ontario. And although the type of the practicum projects that our students end up placed in are quite varied, and they sort of change up every year, in general, the projects tend to fall into these major categories, including clinical diagnostics, clinical research, industry, biotech, startup types of projects, government agencies. And then there's also this other category, because there's always this opportunity for our students to organize a self-directed placement if they have a very specific interest that's not reflected in our current placement partnerships. So what do our graduates do, and how are they going to address that knowledge gap that we've identified in our healthcare system? As a, growing professional program, this is a pretty important question for us. And as students who are thinking about grad school, it's probably a pretty important question for you too. So one of the really big goals of our program is to prepare our grads with these career enabling skills for immediate practical implementation. So with that in mind, our grads can and should expect to be suited for a really wide variety of professional roles when they graduate. So we know that our graduates are really perfectly suited for work in clinical diagnostics facilities or in research labs. And here they're really implementing the tools of genomic medicine and filling this major growing need in the realm of genome analysis and variant interpretation and annotation. So that's a lot of our grads end up there. We also know that our graduates are attractive to publicly funded enterprises and to private companies that are generating and interpreting genomic data, and that could either be for direct-to-consumer delivery or for a clinic. We know that based on our program's strong emphasis both on verbal communication and on written communication, our grads are also very well suited to a variety of science communications, project management, consulting, and health policy roles. Some of our students sort of come into the program and they are already clinicians. And so we sort of expect these clinical grads to sort of exit the program and return to their sort of clinical practice with some sort of new role or with some new specialization. And we also recognize that some of our students every year are going to decide to pursue further education in a whole bunch of relevant fields. For us, when we say relevant field, we usually mean medical school, genetic counseling, or PhD level studies, but there are also others. This degree really allows our grads to address this observed need in both the lab and in the clinical facing sides of this big growing field of medical genomics and enable these new kinds of career paths. And so this is something that I want to think about for a minute before we move on. So I opened our session by saying that this program is geared towards a new era of research in clinical science. And I want to sort of circle back on that before we move on. So we know that in both clinical and in research labs, genetic and genomic tests are a hugely growing component of the data that's being used to guide clinical treatment and to guide research. And these tests, they've progressed from looking at single genes to looking at panels of multiple genes, and now to the collection of whole exome data or whole genome data. And as we've made that progression and scaled up in size, there's also been this increase in the complexity of both understanding and then being able to communicate those results. So I just spent a few minutes telling you about some of the career opportunities in the field that exist right now that we know that our grads are leaving the program and stepping into. But we also know that because this field is changing so much and so fast, that into all these possibilities that are on this slide, we're also training students for jobs that don't even exist yet. So there's a lot to be excited for in this field right now. So hopefully I piqued your interest a little bit. And now I'm going to talk briefly about our application process. Specifically, I want to talk about who are our ideal applicants. What do you need to submit? What can you do to prepare? I'm also going to take this opportunity to highlight that pretty much every single thing that I'm about to say can also be found on our program's website, which is up on the slide right now. And I think that one of our faculty members who's also on the call is dropping these important links in the chat for you as well. All right. So this program, the MHSc in Medical Genomics, which we sort of lovingly call the MedGen program internally, it is very much the first of its kind in Canada. One of the things that makes us special is that we're a dual stream program. So we take students either into a clinical stream or into a laboratory stream. And in a very general sense, to enter into the clinical stream, applicants must have completed one of these things. So a PharmD or an equivalent in pharmacology or pharmacy, a PDEP accredited BSc in food and nutrition, a nurse practitioner grad program, a genetic counseling program, at least 1 year of an undergrad medical degree while remaining in good standing with your medical school, or have completed a recognized MD program. Now, this second category applies to most of our students. So to enter into the lab stream, applicants must have completed a 4-year BSc in a relevant discipline. So I've listed a few things that we would consider to be relevant disciplines here on this slide, but this is certainly not an exhaustive list. There's actually quite a bit of flexibility in academic history, especially if applicants have been working professionally in the field. So if you're not sure if you're a great fit, feel free to reach out and ask us. So these two student streams, the clinical stream and the lab stream, they move through the program as this big unified single cohort. For the most part, they're going to take all the same classes, engage in almost all of the same activities. And the idea is that having that shared training environment is going to let students better appreciate the role of genetic testing, both on patient-facing medical practice and also on this enormous realm of sort of behind-the-scenes lab work, and enable this experience-based discussion, as our two streams really do provide different voices and different perspectives in a classroom. I also want to note that the tuition that is paid is completely independent of the stream of entry. So lab students and clinical students, they pay the same amount. Tuition for all of the graduate programming on campus is set annually at the level of the university. So unfortunately, we don't get to pick what it is. While the exact amount for next year hasn't been announced yet, domestic students should expect to be paying just over $10,000 annually. International students should expect to be paying in the ballpark of $35,000 annually. As a professional program, we also do not offer our students a research stipend. This makes sense because we do not expect our students to do tons and tons of research while they're here. That having been said, all of our students are eligible to apply for TA positions, which are paid on campus. They're eligible to apply for a number of university work study positions, and they're eligible to apply for the Ontario Graduate Scholarship. Some of our students are also eligible for the Temerity Faculty of Medicine needs-based bursaries, student bank loans, and OSAP loans. So there are still options for funding your graduate work. In terms of actually applying to the program, everything that you could ever want to know or need to know about how to apply to the MedGen program is on our website, and it can be found in 2 major locations. So details about our admissions pipeline are available here at moleculargenetics.utoronto.ca/MedGen admission information. That's a big one. And more specific instructions that are covering things like how to apply and exactly what you need to submit with your application are provided here at application procedures. So you see the URL is exactly the same, except it's MedGen application procedures. And again, I think one of our faculty members is dropping these links in the chat, but I can't see the chat right now. So I hope that's true. All right. So I'm not going to go over this too much in depth in this session, since the information that's provided on the website is quite comprehensive. But in brief, all of your applications should be submitted online through the University of Toronto's School of Graduate Studies. You're going to find that right here. So please don't send any of your application materials to me or to our program directly. Everybody who wants to go to grad school at U of T has to apply through the School of Graduate Studies. We have got 2 application rounds a year. Oh, luckily I only put 1 on this slide, but imagine that I had 2. Okay, so we have 2 rounds of applications a year. The first one is in the winter and it's on January 15th. The second one is in the spring and it's on May 1st. And so you're going to notice that there's 2 dates listed here in May. There are also 2 dates in January. I'm going to tell you what those are. So the first date in the winter, again, January 15th, and I apologize for not putting that on the slide. And in the spring, May 1st, that's the deadline for submitting your application package to the School of Graduate Studies through that portal that's in that link right there. And the second date, which is in both cases 2 weeks later. So in the winter, that would be February 1st, and in the spring, it's May 15th. That's the deadline for the documents that accompany your application package. So these are going to be things like reference letters. Those can be uploaded to the School of Graduate Studies portal up to 2 weeks after the application package is due. If you have any questions about that process, please don't hesitate to ask us. And in the next few slides, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what you would want to include in that application package. Okay, so a completed application for the MedGen program is different from a completed application to the rest of our department. We have a few unique features, and it's going to include either 5 or 6 items, depending on whether you're a domestic applicant or an international applicant. So domestic students, this is what you're going to want to submit. You're going to need to submit your 3 reference letters, a scan of your transcripts, your CV or your resume. You're also going to need to submit a transcript summary form, and that's specific to the stream that you're applying for. So there's a different form if you're applying to the lab stream or the clinical stream. You're going to need to submit a letter of intent. And then international students, you will also need to submit proof of English language proficiency unless one of your transcripts indicates very clearly that the language of instruction was English. All right. And again, detailed instructions for completing all of these items are listed on our application procedures website, but I want to draw your attention to a few key points in this list. Maybe. There we go. All right. While you're completing your School of Graduate Studies application, you are going to be asked to provide contact information for 3 different references. These people are then going to be automatically contacted by the School of Graduate Studies as soon as you press go on your application. So you should ask your references well in advance if they are okay with being references for you, because they're going to somebody's going to reach out to them from SGS, and it would be really helpful for you if they knew that that was coming. And so we also have some really good tips on how to choose your referees on our website. I really recommend checking those things out. The transcript summary form is something that helps our admissions committee determine how well your own academic background has prepared you for success in our program. So it's going to ask you to outline the courses that you've taken that touch on various academic nodes. It is very important for you to know that the categories that are in that form are not prerequisites for the program. So for example, the form is going to ask, what do you know about coding? What classes have you taken about ethics, philosophy, law? Those aren't prereqs for the program, but these are things that will be interesting for the admissions committee to know about. So everything that you've done that's relevant to any of the categories there, you should please put them on your transcript summary form. And if you're not sure how to complete that transcript summary form, I know Dr. Steiner already referenced our YouTube channel at least once in this session. But please do check out our how-to video that's posted on the YouTube channel. That is very, very helpful and explains in quite a bit of depth how to tackle the transcript summary form. I also just want to take a minute to very strongly recommend international students or students who are applying to the program with an international degree. Go check out our international students page, which is posted hopefully in the chat now, that link. All right. Your letter of intent is also important enough to your application package that it deserves its own sort of moment to shine here. I want to encourage you to include in your letter a description of why you are interested in the program. And you should also tell us why we as an admissions committee should be interested in you. So those are 2 different questions. You should tell us about your short-term plans and your long-term plans. So we would want to know, for example, why is it going to be meaningful for your professional development for you to take our program? We would want to know about your relevant experiences. And this is also an opportunity for you to tell us about extenuating circumstances that have impacted your grades. You don't have to do that, but it's an opportunity for you to do so if you think it's going to be helpful for our understanding of your transcript. I would also encourage you to steer clear of a few things. So It's not helpful for the admissions committee for you to articulate your full life story. So since I was a child, I've always loved DNA. That's not necessarily going to be so informative for our committee in terms of making a decision. It's not going to be too helpful for us if you focus much on things other than your academic journey, science, clinical work, research efforts. It's not going to be that helpful for our admissions committee. For example, if you're talking about your work as a server, unless you can tie it exactly and specifically to why you want to take the program. And it's also not going to be that interesting for the admissions committee for you to focus too much on your coursework. Some is okay, but remember that we also have your transcripts and we also have your transcript summary forms. So the letter of intent is really your opportunity to tell us a story about why you want to join us and why we should want you to join us. After the admissions committee has had the chance to go through all of the applications, our most promising applicants are going to be invited for short virtual interviews. These are going to take place over the month of February. You'll be notified via email. So when you submit your application package, make sure that you've typed your email address in there correctly, and then keep checking your email because you're going to hear from somebody in our department directly at that email address if we'd like to invite you for an interview. That is your point of contact for a letter from us. You're going to have to respond to the email that we send you to confirm your interview date and time. And if we don't hear from you, you'll forfeit your spot. So those interviews are the last step in the admissions pipeline for our program. After that stage, you're going to be notified by the School of Graduate Studies and by the Molecular Genetics Department when a formal decision about your application's been made. And if we decide to make you an offer, you're also going to hear directly from me because I'm going to email you and congratulate you. All right, so we are looking for our next class to join us in September. We want people who are excited about genomic medicine and who want to get that training that they need to be really ready for this big gap that needs to be filled at the intersection of cutting edge genetic and genomic research, clinical practice, informatics and data analysis, bioethics, and new biomedical tech. All of these industries are changing and new ones are growing to accommodate that sort of changing dynamic landscape of genomic medicine. And we really do have every reason to believe that some of the most in-demand jobs for our grads 2 years from now, 3 years from now, are going to be ones that are only just now being developed to meet the needs of this really exciting field. So we know that there's a need for people with this kind of education, and we are giving our students the tools that they need to really situate themselves well in that field, to solve problems in the field, and to carve out really interesting, exciting careers for themselves in a whole bunch of different areas. So I'm going to end here by saying that we are now accepting applications for a start in September 2024. In a moment, we're going to move into the second part of our information session, which is a panel discussion with some of our really, truly fabulous current students who have been joining the session. But I also want to note that you are more than welcome to reach out to me or to our general emails account for more information at any time. And those are both up on the screen there. So I'm Erin.stiles@utoronto.ca. Our admin account is Medical Genomics at utoronto.ca. If you have questions about how to apply or about connecting with references or about the program in general, I really encourage you to connect. I also would strongly encourage you to keep in touch with us other ways. I already mentioned our YouTube channel, but you can also find us on the other platforms. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and of course, LinkedIn. I cannot encourage you enough to read through the information on our website. Almost every single thing that I have said today can be found there. And if you want to get a little bit of an insider view to what our current students are up to, you can also explore our student blog, which is called the MedGen Project. You can find that at uftmedicalgenomics.blog.home. So that's all I'm going to say. And before I hand the mic over, I am just going to describe a little bit about what we're going to do for the rest of the session. So in a minute, we're going to have a student panel so you can hear about the program from a selection of our current students. When the panel is done, we're going to move to a sort of choose your own adventure breakout room situation where you can hear from and ask questions directly to some of our core faculty and our student ambassadors about a whole bunch of different topics, including sort of career prospects after the program, the capstone practicum, getting your application package ready, and some of our MedGen curricular elements. So that's the plan for the rest of our time together. Now I'm going to ask another one of our core faculty members and also the coordinator of our capstone practicum project, Dr. Johanna Carroll, to take the mic and welcome our fantastic student panelists to take the virtual stage. And we're going to begin our live discussion. So feel free to write any questions that you have about the program and how it works and what the admissions process was like, anything you'd like to know in our chat, where in addition to our panelists, we do have a couple of other current students waiting to answer you.